Hi all. In our today's session, we'll discuss about the invoice verification. What is invoice verifications? How we can receive the invoices? How we can verify the invoices? How we can post an invoices? What are the different transactions in invoices? And what is meant by two-way match and three-way match that we will discuss. In our second sessions, we will discuss about the evaluated receipt settlement and invoicing plans. And later third sessions, we will discuss about the tolerances, how the vendor tolerances are met, and how the GRR clearings will be done by the finance department. So when we discuss about the invoice verification is the last step of our procure to pay cycle from material management point of view. Ideally, the procure to pay cycle start with the purchase requisitions, end with the payment. Payment is the last step, but the payment will be taken care by the finance department. So in procure to pay cycle, starting from purchase requisitions till the invoice posting, that will be the material management scope. So the invoice verifications will be the last step of procure to pay cycle from the material management point of view. Now, what is meant by invoice? An invoice is a legal document which our supplier submit to us for the materials or services he has delivered. This invoice contains the invoice number of the supplier, the invoice date. It contains the item informations, what are the items or what are the services he has performed, how much quantity he has performed, what is the unit price of that particular items, what is the total of that total price of that particular material or services. It also contains the suppliers informations like name and everything, as well as the customer's informations, the customer name, address, emails, and everything. It mentions. Apart from that one, the invoice may contains the tax informations, 15% tax. Okay, so net price is this much, the tax amount is this much, so discount amount is this one. Discount amount can also be added in an invoice. Freight amount also can be added in an invoice, right? So invoice contains the complete information about the payment required to be done or payment required to be made for the materials and services supplied by the suppliers, right? Now, whenever we receive an invoice, we means as a company, our supplier submit an invoice. So whenever we receive an invoice, we need to verify the invoice, right? And once verification is done, then our accounts payable team, the finance department, they will post the invoices, right? Accounts payable team is responsible to verify the invoice and to post the invoice. So they will post means approve the invoice. Once it is posted, that means a liability will be generated for the suppliers, and which means we have to make the payment to the supplier. Okay. So where we can see that liability informations, how we can see the vendor line items, that we can discuss. Now, whenever we post an invoice document, there are some impacts. What are those impacts? As soon as we post an invoice document, an invoice document generate, which tells that your invoice has been approved. Okay. And in the backend system will generate the FI invoice document, that is accounting document, which tells the vendor liability generated. So two documents will get posted, one invoice document, another is FI invoice document, that is accounting document. Then our purchase orders history will get updated with the invoice information. Purchase order status will get updated. So these are the some of the impacts of the invoices. Now let's discuss in details about the invoices. We have a supplier who want to submit an invoice to us. It's we or customer, we can say, right? The supplier want to submit his invoices to customer. So how we can submit his invoices? There are a number of ways a supplier can submit an invoice to a customer. A supplier can submit an invoice through email, through fax, through electronic way, right? He can manually hand over, courier, or manually he can hand over. Okay. There will be a different applications we are using to submit an invoice. Might be Ariba is an application, Ariba network. So Ariba network supplier can submit an invoice, right? There is other applications also which allows supplier to submit invoice electronically. So supplier can submit an invoice to a customer in a different ways, right? Once the invoice is submitted, are we going to post this invoice and make the payments? No. We have to verify the invoice. We have to review that invoice, whether whatever invoice submitted by the supplier is correct or it is true or not. Is it a duplicate invoice? Is the invoice provided by the supplier that materials and that services already delivered by or not? Right. So there are different verifications parameters our accounts payable team will check. Our accounts payable and procurement team will check. And once all the criteria fulfills, then only we post the invoice and we will release the payment. We use finance department will release the payment. Right. So there is a concept called two-way match and three-way match. What is meant by two-way match? What is meant by three-way match? Two-way match means our invoice will be matched with the purchase order only. That means whatever invoice submitted by the supplier, that should match with the purchase order details. That is my two-way match. What is meant by three-way match? Whatever invoice submitted by supplier, that should match with the purchase orders as well as goods receipt. Right? So, first scenario, two-way match. Which business uses two-way match normally? There are very huge invoice flow to the finance department. Right? Sometimes what happens? Suppliers finance department submit invoice before they deliver the goods. Right? In this case, whatever invoice is received, we do not want to reject it. What we want? We want to process that invoice. We want to accept that invoice, but we will not make the payments until it is delivered, until the goods delivered. But we want to accept the invoice. So in this case, goods receipt is not required. If invoice is received, we will check, okay, against the purchase order, is there an open quantity for the invoice? Yes, it is open quantity for the invoice. And whatever quantities or materials mentioned in the invoice are the same quantities and materials mentioned in the purchase orders. Yes, it is mentioned. In that case, we will accept our invoice. So we do not need that system should miss the goods has been delivered or not. We do not need to worry about that one. So in two-way match, an invoice will be matched against the purchase order. And if it is matched, we can accept that invoice. But in three-way match, there are maximum business follows three-way match, where the invoice, whatever invoice submitted by the supplier, that invoice will be matched against the purchase orders and a goods receipt. For example, purchase order is created for 100 quantity, right? And we have posted goods receipt only for 50 quantities. In that case, system will allow only to post an invoice for the 50 quantities because the goods receipt is for the 50 quantities. So whatever invoice submitted, that invoice should match with the goods receipt as well as the purchase order. Right? System will not allow us to post an invoice for the 100 quantities because goods receipt is only for 50 quantities. If supplier submit an invoice for the 100 quantities, the invoice has to be rejected, or we need to ask supplier to provide the remaining 50 quantities and then we can accept this invoice. Right? So this is a three-way match. In SAP, this two-way match and three-way match is called as, the two-way match is PO-based invoice and three-way match is called as a GR-based invoice. Okay. Let us see this concept in our SAP application. Okay. So I'm creating one new purchase orders, ME21N. I'll provide my supplier information. I'll provide my purchase organizations, purchasing group, company code, material information, plant information. Okay, so if you see, I have created a normal purchase orders. I have not activated the GR based IV. Okay, and let me save this purchase order. So my purchase order 75 is created. Now, let me just display this purchase order. So this is my purchase order, and I can see the order quantity is 100. Total amount is 2000 euro. We have not received anything, so we have not invoiced anything. Right? Now what we are going to do? Now, ideally, supplier should submit this, means we need to share this copy, purchase order copy to the suppliers, and suppliers should deliver the goods, and then we should post an invoice. But suppliers finance department has delivered the invoices early than the goods, and we do not want to, means due to our invoice flow, we do not want to cancel, reject that invoice and all, right? There are different business scenarios, so we want to accept this purchase order. So if I go to the invoice posting before the goods receipt, let's see how it will work. I'll give my invoice date. I'll give the invoice. This reference is nothing but the invoice, supplier invoice number. I'm giving some number here. I'll give my purchase order number, that is 75. Right? So you can see the complete purchase order information is captured here. Right? Our tax codes and PO quantities and everything is PO net value, everything is captured here. Now we need to fill our information, how much quantity supplier requested. So 100 quantity. What is the amount supplier has provided? 2000. So this information we need to fill it here. And we have to fill it here as well. If we calculate this tax information, 300 euro will be the tax. So 2300 will be the total amount which we need to pass over, which we need to pay to our supplier. Let me check. I need to select an option is the invoice. Let me just start it again. I'll go to the my row. I'll select my transaction as invoice. I'll give my date, invoice reference number, that is supplier invoice number. I'll give my purchase order reference number here. I will say to the system that supplier has submitted invoice for 100 quantity and amount is 2000. Baseline date I will provide here. And then I'll calculate the tax. 300 will be the tax, 2300 will be my total amount. So I can see there is no errors. Everything is green. I can hold this invoice. That means I can park this invoice. Okay. And then once I have remaining data or once verified by the senior person, it can be posted. That is also possibility. So when means invoice parking functionality, invoice hold functionality, everything is there. We are going to discuss about that one. So now let's take an example. I'm going to post an invoice before the goods receipt has been posted in system. So if you see here, I'll post this invoice. And you can see system allowed me to post an invoice, but the payment, there is a payment block. That means we cannot release the payment until the goods receipt has been posted. So let's see now our purchase order history. If I open this purchase order, I can see there is a invoice document, right? This is invoice verification document. If I open this one, this is my invoice document, right? If I click on this following document, it will tell me the FI invoice document, that is accounting document. So whenever we post any invoice, it will generate two documents, invoice document, another is FI invoice document. So here its system will say that we need to pay 2,300. There is a liability for the vendor 2,300. GRR clearings will be debited and the tax informations will be debited, right? So this way the transactions will get posted. Now, here, what we did, if I go to the status in a purchase order, we have order 100 quantity. There is quantity still to be delivered. Supplier has not delivered the quantity. But before that only, system allows me to post an invoice. So here what system did, system has matched this invoice, whatever invoice submitted by supplier, system has matched with the purchase order. And system found that, okay, there is a open value, open quantities and open values in the purchase order for the invoice. The system allowed us to post an invoice. This is called a two-way match. This is called PO-based invoice verification. Now let us discuss about the three-way match, that is GR-based invoice verification. I'm going to create one new purchase order with the same supplier. Okay, so you can see here, I'm creating a purchase order, and I just mentioned that this purchase order is a GR-based invoice verification, right? So I'll just save this purchase order. My purchase order is saved. Now in this case also, just assume that supplier has delivered the invoice before providing the goods, and we want to post an invoice directly before the goods receipt. So let's see if system allows us or not. So I'll go to the invoice verification screen, that is Miro screen, MIRO transaction. I'll select my invoice, right? Here you can switch your company codes and all. You have to switch your company codes. You can enter your respective company code information, and you can give your invoice date, invoice reference number, that is supplier invoice number. You can give your purchase order number here and press enter. As soon as you will press enter, system will give a information message that no suitable items found for purchase order. This. That means system could not able to find a goods receipt, because system is expecting, this is GR-based invoice verification. System is expecting the goods receipt document. There is no goods receipt document, so system is giving this message, right? So we are unable to post this invoice. So what happens? We have to post our goods receipt. So let's post the goods receipt first. I'll go to the Migo transaction code. I'll give the goods receipt purchase orders, and I'll give my purchase order number. I'll give my storage locations, and I'll tell system that I want to receive only 50 quantity, not 100 quantity. Right, let me post this goods receipt. So goods receipt document has been posted. Now let us try to post an invoice. I'll go to the Miro screen. I'll give my invoice date. I'll enter my invoice reference number. I'll enter my purchase order number. And if you see here, system has proposed 50 quantities and amount 1,000. This information is coming from our goods receipt document. If I scroll to the right side, okay, if you scroll to the right side, you can see the received quantity is 50. Even if you scroll right side, you will get the PO quantity is 100, GR quantity 50, and you can find your goods receipt document as well, right? So system will consider the goods receipt document here and the purchase order, and it will verify with the invoice. So we need to give our baseline date, and if I go here, this will be my tax code V1. So 150 will be the tax amount. Total will be 1150, right? So I'll just check everything is fine, then I'll post it, right? So my invoice document is posted. If I go back to the purchase order, this is my purchase order. You can see everything here, that my invoice goods receipt is for 50 quantity, invoice is for 50 quantity. So if you see the status is, I have order for 100 quantity, 2000 euro is the price. So supplier has delivered 50 quantities and system has allowed me to post invoice only for 50 quantities, right? Here, whenever we are posting an invoice, system is checking the goods receipt documents and allow us to post an invoice only for that quantity. So what system is doing? System is checking the goods receipt document as well as the purchase order document. Three documents it will verify: invoice, goods receipt documents, and the purchase order documents. That is why it is called three-way match, right? Maximum companies are using three-way match because they do not want to post any invoices before the goods receipt. Whatever quantity supplier has delivered, they want to consider only that quantity for invoice point of view, right? So maximum companies are following three-way match, that is GR based invoice verification, correct? So this is a concept of PO based invoice verifications and GR based invoice verification, that is two-way match and three-way match. Next, let us discuss about the transactions in invoice. So in our goods, in our inventory management, we discuss about the transactions of MIGO, right? In MIGO transaction code, we have discussed what are the different transactions we have from inventory management point of view. We have the goods receipt transactions, we have goods issue, we have transfer posting, we have cancellations, we have display, we have release GR block stock, we have subsequent debit, subsequent adjustment. These are the different inventory management point of view transactions. So what are the transactions we have from invoice point of view? In invoice point of view, we have four transactions. First, we have invoice. Second transaction is called as subsequent debit. We have subsequent credit. And there is a credit memo concept, right? So these are the four transactions we have from invoice verification point of view: invoice, subsequent debit, subsequent credit, credit memo. What is meant by invoice? As we discussed, invoice is a legal document provided by a supplier to a customer for the materials and the services he has delivered. That is an invoice, right? Against the purchase orders, against goods receipt, we can post our invoices. Now, subsequent debit, subsequent credit, and credit memo will be in picture only if the invoice is already posted. If invoice is already posted for a purchase order, then only this will come in a picture. If invoice is not there, obviously this will not be in picture. So we do not need to worry about this one because invoice itself not posted. If invoice posted, then only we can post subsequent debit or subsequent credit or credit memo. What is meant by subsequent debit? Subsequent debit, when this functionality used, Let's assume that we have created a purchase order for 100 quantity. We have done the GR for 100 quantity. Okay. And supplier has submitted invoice, original invoice. Accepted as well. Created a purchase order. And the purchase order. 1 minute. Okay. So we created a purchase order for 100 quantity. GR has been posted for 100 quantity. And invoice is also posted for 100 quantity. That means our purchase order is completed. After that one, supplier communicated and saying there is an additional invoice. Last time I forgot to mention the freight amount in the invoice. This is a 50 euro, which is a freight amount you have to take, you have to bear. This is 50 euro invoice. I'm going to share it with you. Please accept this invoice as well. So original invoice is already posted. On top of that one, system supplier has provided one more invoice, right? This additional invoice we can post as a subsequent debit. Additional amount invoice. Okay, this additional amount invoice we can post as a subsequent debit. Let us see. I am creating fresh new purchase order. Hundred quantities. I am doing it. I do not want ERS now. I'll just select GR based IVs and I'll post this purchase order. So my purchase order is created. I will share this purchase order with the supplier. Assume that supplier has delivered the goods. I am doing a goods receipt. I means our logistic team is doing the goods receipt. I'm going to do, I have received 100 quantities, so I'm going to do the full quantity goods receipt. And my storage location, quantity item, okay, click on check and let us post. So my goods receipt document posted. Now I'm going to post an invoice. I'll go to the Miro transaction. I'll go to the invoice date. I'll insert my invoice date. I'll insert my invoice number. I'll give my purchase order reference number. Okay. And then I'm correcting my tax informations. My tax is V1 15%. I'll insert my baseline date and my tax is 300. So 2,300 will be the amount I need to pay my supplier. So normal invoice, I'm going to post it. Okay. So let's see the purchase order first. $76. So you can see here, we have ordered for 100 quantities. Supplier not 77. So we have ordered for 100 quantity. Supplier has delivered 100 quantity and we have invoiced 100 quantity. Ideally, my purchase order is closed. But after some time, what happens? Supplier gave me one more additional invoice saying there is a cost of $50. It might be insurance cost, it might be freight cost, right? Based on the business scenarios, supplier provided one more additional invoice saying that this is the cost you need to bear. You need to make the payment for this much. I forgot to mention this in my original invoice. So we have received an additional invoice from the suppliers. This additional invoice we can post as a subsequent debit. How we can post subsequent debit? We can go to the transaction code MIRO and there is option subsequent debit, right? We can choose subsequent debit. We can give our invoice date. We can give the invoice number, that subsequent additional invoice number. We can give our purchase order number 77. We will mention 100 quantities and the supplier gave me for the 50 euro. I'll insert my baseline date. I'll select here the correct tax information. If I go here, I'll also here select correct tax information. Calculate 7.50 is the tax amount, so total will be 57.50, and everything is fine. I will post it. So this will be posted as a subsequent debit. Let me post it. I'll show you. So my subsequent debit is posted. I'll go to my purchase orders. Let me refresh my purchase order. If you see here, there is an additional line generated mentioning subsequent debit log information, subsequent debit log invoice verification, and there is a amount which is impacted for the 50 euro. If I open this one, it will show me invoice only because this is an additional invoice, additional amount invoice. But actually we have posted this as a subsequent debit. If I go to the purchase order statuses here, you can see we have order for 2000 euro. We have supplier delivered for 2000 euros, but invoice is done for the 2050 because there is a 50 euros additional impact as a subsequent debit. Subsequent debit and subsequent credit only impacts value. It will not impact the quantity. Subsequent debit and subsequent credit only impact the values, not to the quantity. On the other hand, credit memo will impact your quantity as well as value. We'll discuss about that. So first scenario, subsequent debit. If there is any additional invoice submitted by the suppliers, we can post it as a subsequent debit. Now, let's understand about the subsequent credit. We have created a purchase order for 100 quantity, goods received done for the 100 quantity, invoice is done for the 100 quantity. Now, supplier is saying that I was supposed to give you 50 euro discount, but I have not mentioned this in my original invoice, and you already have posted and approved this invoice, original invoice. This 50 euro, I need to give it back to you. So that information we can capture as a subsequent credit. There is an additional credit memo submitted by a supplier, okay, for the amount that will be posted as a subsequent credit. Let's understand this one. I'm going to create a purchase order. I'll give my supplier number. I'll give my purchase organizations, purchasing group. I'll give my material number. I'll give my plant informations. 100 quantity. I do not want ERS now, so I'll just keep it blank. I will select my correct tax information here. Let me save it. So my purchase order 78 is created. I'm going to do the goods receipt. That means our logistics team will be performing goods receipt. Goods receipt purchase order number is 78. I'm giving the delivery note number, storage location, 3000. Okay, I'm going to receive 100 quantity. Now let me post this one. Next, I'm going to post an invoice. My original invoice I'm going to post here. I'll give my invoice date. I'll give my reference number, and I'll give my reference purchase order 78. You can see the complete information is captured here. I'll select the tax informations. I'll choose the baseline date. And then you can see here 2300 will be my amount. So I'm going to post my original invoice. Okay, so invoice has been posted. Now let me show you the purchase order first. This is my 78. So we can see here the order quantity is 100, 2000 euro. Delivered quantity is 100, 2000 euro. and we have invoiced 100 quantity 2000 euros, right? Now what happens? Now supplier has communicated and saying that there is a 50 euro I need to give it to you because I have not mentioned that information in my original invoice. So this is a credit memo for this one, right? So this one I can post as a subsequent credit. So I'll go to the Miro screen. I'll choose the transaction as subsequent credit. I'll give my invoice number, the subsequent invoice date, invoice number, supplier invoice number, and I'll give my reference purchase order number, that is 78, and I'll mention that 50 euro is the is what supplier is going to return. Then let me just calculate the tax. 7.50, that is 57.50 will be the total amount. Then let us post it. I have posted this one as a subsequent credit. If I refresh my purchase order, let's see. So you can see here there is additional document created for minus 50. Our purchase order for 2000 euro, goods receipt is done for the 2000 euro, invoice is done for the 2000 euro, and there is a minus 50 which is posted as a subsequent credit. If I open this one, system will show me as a credit memo, but this is not a credit memo, it is a subsequent credit. Subsequent credit will also impact only to the value, not to the quantity. If you see here, supplier is saying, purchase order is saying that 100 quantity is ordered 2000 euro, 100 quantity delivered 2000 euro, 100 quantity invoice, but the amount is 1950 because original 2000 invoice and then 50 is the subsequent credit. The subsequent debit credit will always impact only to the value, not to the quantity. Got it? So this is what subsequent debit and subsequent credit is. Now let us discuss about the credit memo. Credit memo is used for the invoice reversal point of view. Whenever we want to reverse our invoice, if you already accepted invoice, posted invoice, and we want to reverse for some reason, then we can post it as a credit memo. So credit memo will reverse our original invoice. Sometimes there is a cases, we have created a purchase order for 100 quantity. We done the goods receipt for 100 quantity. We have done the invoice for the 100 quantity, right? Now, we made the payment and everything for this much, right? Now what happens? Now, supplier gave us 1 year warranty. Out of this 100 quantity, we want to return 20 quantity because this is showing incorrect properties after 6 months only. So 20 quantities we want to return. If we are returning this 20 quantity, whatever price of this 20 quantity, we want to get it back from our suppliers. So this information can be posted as a credit memo. Got it? Credit memo will always impact to the quantity as well as value. Let us understand this. I'll go to purchase order. I'll create my new purchase order. I'll give my supplier numbers, my purchasing organization number, my purchasing group. I'll give my material codes, plant EBR. I'll give my 100 quantity. I do not want ERS now. Click on check and post. My purchase order is created. I'll go and do the goods receipt. 79. Storage location will be 3000. So everything is there. Let us post it. Okay. I need to select this flagged OK, item OK. Click on check and post it. Next, let me do the goods invoice receipt. I'll go to the Miro. I'll choose an invoice. I'll give my invoice number. I'll give my reference purchase order number. I'll correct my tax information. I'll give my baseline date. So my tax amount 2,300 total amount. 200 will be the tax amount. Everything is fine. Let me post it. My original document is posted. Let us go back and check my purchase orders. That is 79. You can see here, this is a purchase orders for which we have order 100 quantity delivered, 100 quantity invoiced. Now we want to return 20 quantities because of some reason. We want to return our 20 quantities, right? Let me do the return directly. Let's see if system allows us to return. How I can return it? We have discussed vendor return scenario, right? Return without return PO, return with return PO, return with return PO and subsequent delivery. That is return delivery, right? So any scenario we can use it. Either we can use the original purchase order as a reference and we can return it, or we can create a separate purchase orders and return it, right? So there are different ways. We have the original purchase order, so we'll use it and you want to return it. So let me use this one and I'll go to the Migo. Goods receipt purchase orders, giving my purchase order number. I'm selecting my return momentum 122. Let me press OK. The delivery note, storage location 3000, and then reason for movement. I'm considering the damaged as a reason for movement. Let them OK. Click on check. So system is showing the deficit of the PU IR quantity 100. System will not allow us to return the goods because there is already invoice posted. So what happens? We need to first create a credit memo for 20 quantities. I'll go to the Miro screen. I'll select here credit memo. I'll give the invoice date here. The credit memo reference number, I'll provide it here. Okay. I'll give my original purchase order number 79. And here I'll mention I want to, here I can adjust my quantity and amount. So 20 quantities and the amount will be 400. I'll adjust my tax informations. And if I select here calculate tax, 60 is the tax, 460 will be the amount, credit memo. So I'm going to post this as a credit memo. Let us post it. I have posted the document. Let us see the purchase order. If I refresh this purchase order, what happened? You can see here, there is no any subsequent debit log, separate tab generated. This team has updated the informations under invoice verification only. The original invoice is posted for 100 quantity. 20 quantities we have reversed. For 20 quantities we created a credit memo. Credit memo always impacts your quantity as well as value. If I go to purchase order history here, you can see we have ordered 100 quantity. Till now we have delivered 100 quantities. 80 quantities only invoiced. This impact quantity as well as this value. Now I can return this 20 quantity with the Migo screen. If I go to the Migo transaction, I'll go to the goods receipt purchase order. I'll give my purchase order number, delivery note number, storage location, reason for movement, quantity 20, item okay check. The system is allowing me to post it and I can post it. Now if I go and refresh my purchase orders, what I can see? I can see the delivered quantity is 80, still to be delivered is 20. Invoice is 80. That means we have adjusted our goods receipts and invoice receipt quantity. Invoice receipt quantity adjusted with the help of credit memo. Right? Now, I'll just recap again. Subsequent debit, subsequent credit, and credit memo will be in picture only if the invoice is already posted. If invoice is not posted, this will not comes in picture. Right? When we post a subsequent debit, when supplier will provide an additional invoice. When subsequent credit comes in a picture, when supplier is provided additional credit memo for the, and he's saying that he required to make the payment for this amount. Credit memo, when we want to adjust our quantity or when we want to reverse our original invoice, we can post it as a credit memo. Subsequent debit, subsequent credit only impacts to the value, not to the quantity. Credit memo will always impact to the value as well as quantity. Right? So that is what we have, the different transactions for the invoices. So what we discussed, we have discussed about the invoice verifications. We discussed about the transactions in invoice. In our next sessions, we'll discuss about the evaluated receipt settlements. We also discuss about the invoicing plans, and we'll discuss about the GRR clearings and tolerances. Thank you.